In 1611, a woman is dragged through a Spanish marketplace. Her hands are bound, her mouth is gagged, her body is shaking, but she is not being taken to the gallows. She is headed towards something worse. A chair not made of wood, not built for sitting. Guards lift her trembling frame and force her onto it. Iron spikes dig into her back, her thighs, her arms. Beneath the seat, a brazier crackles to life. She starts to scream as the heat climbs. But that is not even the worst part. This was not a one-time horror. It was a system, a ritual. Across 16th and 17th century Europe, women were roasted alive, not to kill them quickly, but to cook them slowly, publicly, painfully, for hours. In this video you will discover the torture chair designed to cook skin from the inside out. Forgotten victims who were turned into burning lessons. How the church dressed sadism as salvation. And the woman who suffered the most brutal version of all. Her name was Isidora. If this already has you disturbed, hit that subscribe button because next week I am revealing the medieval torture mask made to silence women forever by crushing their jaws while they walk the streets. Europe in the 1500s is a continent ruled by fire and fear, which trials sweep through Germany. Heresy hunts flair in France. And in Spain, the Inquisition tightens its grip on every whisper, every ritual, every woman who dares to step outside the roles defined for her. In this world, justice is not about truth. It is about obedience. A whispered accusation could mean imprisonment, a misunderstood potion, death. And for many women, even helping another give birth could be seen as a dangerous challenge to religious order. Into the iron torture chair, these were not devices of quick death. They were built for display. Heavy iron thrones embedded with spikes. Below the seat, a brazier slowly heating the metal until it seared flesh. Not all chairs had spikes, but all had one purpose. Slow theatrical agony. The purpose was not just to punish. It was to warn. These executions were held in public squares. Entire villages were summoned to watch. Priests gave sermons as the victims screamed. Children were told to remember this moment. Because fear lasts longer than a sentence. And for those who could not attend in person, word traveled fast. Pain spread like fire through stories, songs, rumors. Everyone knew what the chair meant. Even if they had never seen it, they had imagined it. But here is what nobody tells you. The chair was not the most painful part. It was what came after. The silence, the cover-ups, the victims erased from history. Their names buried under layers of sacred ash. But not all were forgotten. In the next section, we will reveal how these chairs were made and why surviving them was not the goal. It looked like a throne, but it was forged in hell. The iron torture chair, sometimes called the heretic seat, was made entirely of metal, cold at first, then glowing. Its back arms, seat, and footrest were covered in hundreds of iron spikes, not long enough to kill, just sharp enough to pierce the skin and stay there. Victims were stripped naked, paraded in front of townspeople. Then tied down with iron bands, wrists, ankles, thighs, chest. Every point of contact dug deeper into their skin as they squirmed, and beneath the seat, a brazier, sometimes charcoal, sometimes embers. The executioner lit it slowly, feeding the fire by hand in careful increments. This was not a fire meant to kill. It was a fire meant to heat the chair gradually, so the victim felt everything. First warmth, then pain, then blistering heat, then skin fusing to the metal. Eyewitness accounts from Toledo, Spain, described the moment skin would bond with iron when even the smallest movement would tear flesh from bone. One friar wrote, "She began with screams, but as the spikes melted into her, she fell silent, not from death, but from horror." Some chairs had spikes that could be removed and replaced mid-execution so a priest or executioner could prolong the agony, twisting fresh ones into place. And if that was not cruel enough, there were chairs with hollow spikes made to deliver scalding water or boiling oil directly into the body, drop by drop. This was engineering designed for suffering. Yet, the worst part was not the construction. It was the audience. Because while the iron chair broke the body, it was the watching crowd that destroyed the soul. But do not click away because in the next section, we will show you how this torture was not just allowed. It was written into law. This was not rogue violence. It was policy. By the mid-600s, records from France, Italy, and Spain show that slow roast execution by iron chair was legal, not just permitted, mandated. In many towns, especially those under strong clerical rule, the use of the iron chair was written into the sentencing codes for crimes like heresy, midwifery without sanction, or blasphemy against church officials. In 1627 in Toulouse, France, a woman named Marguerite Blanc was accused of poisoning a nobleman's son. There was no confession, no physical evidence, but 3 rumors said she used devil's herbs. That was enough. The judge read her sentence aloud. Purgation by holy fire. They brought her to the square, sat her naked on the spiked chair, tied her down, then began the ritual. The priest prayed. The executioner adjusted the coals and the chair began to heat. She lasted 4 hours. But here is what makes this case unforgettable. She survived long enough to speak. Witnesses said that in her final moments, as her skin burned and peeled, she lifted her head and whispered, "I am not your lesson. I am your sin." That line was not recorded in the court ledger, but a 17-year-old scribe's apprentice, Itten Karen, copied it into the margin of his notebook. That notebook was hidden in a chapel wall during the Revolution, found in 1892, and now sits in a glass case in the Toulouse Historical Archive. Show-aged notebook, faded ink-circled candle light flickering over glass. Margaret's name was erased from the town registry. Her body was reduced to ash, but her words outlived every man who watched her die. Still, her story is rare. Most victims never got to speak. Most died before they could even scream. And most horrifying of all, it was not the priests or the judges who demanded the chair most often. It was the people. Do not go anywhere. Because in the next section, we will reveal how the crowd itself became part of the punishment. They did not hide the chair. They put it in the center of everything. In most towns, executions by iron chair were public ceremonies, not quiet, not somber. They were events announced days in advance, hosted in central plazas, and timed to coincide with religious feasts or harvest markets. Markets would shut down, bells would ring. Vendors sold fruit and bread just feet from the flames. Children were brought forward. Old women clutched rosaries. And the priests reminded the crowd, this is not cruelty. This is correction. In Genher, church records describe entire chair days, full-day events where one woman was roasted alive while another was judged in a temporary court nearby. The idea was simple. Watch one punishment, fear the next. Some towns even reserved balcony seats for nobles, shade-covered viewing boxes to watch from comfort. And the public did not just watch. They cheered. They wept. They clapped. They sometimes threw stones if the victim screamed too much or too little. Because this was not just about pain. It was about performance. Show flickering torchlight on faces. Crowds' mood shifting between fascination and fear. But not everyone accepted the show. In 1654 in Verona, someone nailed a letter to the cathedral door the night before a scheduled burning. It read, "You have made pain into prayer, but fire burns more than bodies. It burns the soul of a people." No one ever claimed it. No one was punished for it. But the next day, the crowd was quiet. Witnesses said fewer people clapped. One woman fainted. Another turned away. It did not stop the execution. But it was the beginning of something rare, resistance. Some historians now believe that the public's changing mood, not legal reform, ended the use of the iron chair. Because when the fear stopped working, the fire lost its power. But do not look away yet, because in the next section we return to the chair one final time for the story of Isidora. A woman who endured the longest, died the slowest, and left behind something the church could never burn. Her name was Isadora Alvarado, a midwife, a healer, a woman known across Valencia for her calm hands and sharp tongue. She had delivered over 200 babies in her district and was called the mother of mothers by the people. But in 1671, she made a fatal mistake. She spoke. Isidora accused a priest, Father Emiliano Ruiz, of assaulting a young mother during confession. She did not whisper. She did not hide. She made the accusation in front of 6 witnesses. 3 days later, she was arrested. The charges: heresy, use of forbidden herbs, defamation of a holy servant. The punishment, execution by the chair, but not a public one. This time, the Inquisition ordered a private ceremony. 14 witnesses, no crowd, no marketplace, no festival, just a single iron chair set up beneath the altar of the old crypt beneath the church of St. Lindro. Isidora was stripped, bound, and seated on the iron throne. But unlike other executions, the brazier was not fed regularly. It was starved of fuel, then stoked suddenly, causing her body to cycle between freezing and burning. She lasted 8 hours, and the man who read the final rites, Father Emiliana. But what happened next is even more disturbing. Her body was not fully burned. When she died, still fused to the glowing iron. The inquisitors did not remove her. Instead, they left her corpse attached, seared, twisted, arms blackened, face blistered beyond recognition. They placed the chair in a sealed chamber behind the altar wall. Above the iron door they carved a single Latin phrase, memento acere. Remember, to speak is to suffer. For over a century the chamber was forgotten. Then in 1813, during the Napoleonic invasion, French soldiers looted the church of St. Lindro. One unit broke through the altar wall and discovered the chamber. Inside they found the chair, and they found Isidora still bound, still fused to the iron, still intact. French commanders ordered the church burned to the ground. But before they did, one soldier, an artist named Julien Courbet, sketched the scene. His drawing survives in the French army archives. Isidora's body was buried in an unmarked grave. The chair was melted down for cannon shot, but the sketch is all that remains. A warning, a memory, and a question. What happens to a society that punishes truth with fire? The iron chair was not designed to kill. It was designed to break the body slowly, to break the will in front of an audience, to turn a single scream into a law, a ritual, a memory. And for centuries it worked. Victims were not just punished. They were erased. Their pain became public theater. Their silence became precedent. And their bodies, like Isidora's, were used as symbols not of guilt, but of what happens when someone dares to speak. We like to believe we have moved beyond this. But ask yourself, where do we still punish people slowly? Where do we still make examples of them in front of crowds? Where is shame still used as fire? Because the tools have changed. But the system still knows how to burn. Speaking of brutal punishments, you will not want to miss our next video about the device used to silence women with a single screw to the jaw. It is linked right here. Now it is your turn. What would you have done if you lived in a world where speaking the truth meant being cooked alive? Leave your thoughts below, and I will see you in the next nightmare from history.